I don't know. I mean, unless that was, you were talking about having Vince Young or Colt McCoy's fathead up on your wall, in high school. If he had the Pete Carroll fathead, it just
don't see
SC
it,
was
though.
always a thing for him, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. It's crazy, and I know everybody is arguing this now. Well, I call it a home run hire. A lot of people are like, well, I don't think he's that good. Well, yeah, I get it. Everybody's going to have their opinions on that, especially now that he's left and you're an OU fan, right? And there have been some things that he's done this year from a coaching standpoint that leads you to believe like, oh, okay, that probably wasn't the best coaching move. But let's be honest. He is one of the best coaches in college football right now. Like he's up there. So this is a home run hire for USC, given their recent history and record. Here's another thing that we haven't touched on yet, and then I want to ask you a question, Bryce. He's leaving the University of Oklahoma that has well over 100 straight sellout games of 90,000 fans. I mean, the people in Oklahoma love Sooner football. Game day in Norman, amazing. If you've never been, it's awesome. He's going to the Pac-12, USC, where they struggled to fill up a quarter of their stadium, the Coliseum, this past year. People don't care as much out on the West Coast about college football. I mean, they did in the Leinart days, and maybe that's what his dream is. Hey, get this thing filled up again. It's just weird that that's the challenge you want? Like, take the Cowboys job 2 years ago. That's a challenge. This is not a challenge. This is you demoting yourself, in my opinion.
Wow,
in my
that's
opinion.
big. I don't know if I believe that, but it's definitely one of those things that just the 2 plus 2 isn't fish, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. There's something else here for him to do that, because I just go back to the timestamp. You don't make life decisions like this in 12 hours, and we
especially coming off of an emotional loss,
right? That's just what's disheartening. So
let me ask you this, Bryce.
Yeah, rock and roll.
I want to ask you in 3 phases here. You are a student athlete at the University of Oklahoma. You're on the football team. You are told that you have a meeting at 2:45 or whenever it was to go over the bowl schedule. You just come off a really heartbreaking loss. You're not going to the Big 12 title game for the first time in all these guys, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, whoever's on the roster, they've always gone to the Big 12 title game, right? A lot of emotions is what I'm saying. Lincoln Riley walks into the meeting room and says what he said, and he's leaving. As a player, what's going through your head? How are you handling this mentally? Are you thinking about leaving? Are you bought in? Does it matter if you're a freshman or a senior? Like what goes through your mind there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to probably evaluate all of those things, right? I mean, if you're a senior, you got 1 year left. Is Norman a place where, is the NFL, your holy grail? Is that something that you want to aspire to be? Do you wait to figure out who the next coach is going to be? I mean, OU, to everything that we've been saying is in its own right a very nostalgic program. I mean, OU's been winning football. I mean, this game that we're talking about here in a couple of minutes coming up between Baylor and Oklahoma State. This is the first time since 1998, that Texas or OU has not been, in conversations of the Big 12 championship. So, to him, and maybe that's what it is. It's just like, look, I'm pinnacle of whatever, and then I'm going to have to go back to bottom of the barrel, against SEC teams or SEC West. I don't know. But as a player, this really, and like I said before, just throws a whole lot of life decisions into what could be an 18-year-old kid or a 22-year-old kid very quickly. So, me personally, if I'm a senior that wants to play in the NFL, I'm probably leaving. If I'm a freshman and I'm a 4 or 5-star guy, which is kind of what he's been bringing in the last couple of years. If I'm a receiver, if I'm a quarterback, Caleb Williams, I don't see him staying in Norman. I see him following.
Really?
I see him following Lincoln. If that's what, again, to that point that we made earlier, if you're sitting on my couch, I'm so much more invested in you as my coach than what Norman is, right?
So you're saying the coach is far more important than the program?
Why would it not be? Why would it not be?
I think my mentality is probably just a little bit different than yours. Not that yours is wrong. I think that that's warranted. I watched the presser today. Bob Stoops even came on, and I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to keep guys around, and he cares about the program.
That was a desperation move. But
he
ahead.
says this is so much more about me or Lincoln or Barry Switzer or any of the coaches that have been here. It's about the program, and I buy into that, and I get that you think that's a desperation move, but I buy into that because when I was walking the halls of this, it used to be called the Switzer Center, and that was the facilities at OU. When I was on my junior day visit, I'd already been offered, but this is when I decided that I was going to be a Sooner. I remember just looking at the pictures on the walls, feeling the aroma, better understanding the history of the program. And yes, I was coming to play for Bob Stoops and Josh Heupel, and that was a huge piece of the puzzle. But I think the history of the program plays a lot into it also. I mean, you're going to hire a great coach, and I know it's not your coach. I get that. But my junior year, we fired Josh Heupel and hired Lincoln Riley, and it was a change for me, obviously personally, big time. I was the starter, then I wasn't the starter. But I still cared about being there enough that year to compete for the job, you know. Obviously, I left because I wanted to play more football and I wasn't the starter anymore. And maybe that's, you know, shoving a sock in my mouth right there. You don't know when somebody else comes in what you're promised anymore. I get that. It's hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
You may be right. I may be right. I think I'm right because I'm always right, but, you know.
Well, I think it's different strokes for different folks, right? I think that what I was saying is not necessarily different than you in terms of you walking the halls and being invested into that program. That definitely plays into, you know, as a recruiting or as a recruited athlete, you know, especially all these 4- or 5-star guys that have been coming through Norman, they're going to have, you know, their you know, the hats, man. They've got UT, they've got the LSUs, they've got the Floridas, they've got so when you're looking at all those hats sitting on table, what makes you pick up an OU hat?
So you're talking about not necessarily the guys in the locker room, but more so the guys that are coming in.
Well, it's a little bit of both, right? Because the thing is, you still, as a kid in that program, you still picked up that hat when you were recruited. And so what I'm saying is that there is a huge part of that decision that goes into, you know, and even as your family, you know, does their best to impart wisdom on that decision as well, you know, who is going to be the guy to lead me to be a man, right? Who is going to be the guy, the strength coach, the DC, the other, you know, 105 guys around me that are going to make me a better football player. And so what I'm saying is that, you know, if I'm a senior at OU, you know, that's a defensive tackle or you know, a tight end or you know, maybe I do stay because I am invested into those walls. But if I'm Caleb Williams and, you know, look, this dude gave me an opportunity to play at 18 years old and have had success with him, I'm not necessarily, you know, I don't have blood, sweat, and tears in these walls yet. So
You're saying just give him the opportunity to see who gets hired. Because we're at the end
I think you have to, too.
Yeah,
right?
So, like, Caleb Williams, right? Like, stick around, see who gets hired. Maybe it's a match made in heaven, right? Like, who knows who it's going to be? Maybe it's not for you. I think because of the timing of the season, you open the door for these guys to at least see who's coming in, sit in a meeting room, talk to them face to face.
Could be Dan Mullen.
Could be Dan Mullen. Could be Mike Leach.
Could be
Brent Venables.
There it is. I think there's a lot of good names out here that would do really well in this program,
and they're gonna get a big name.
They are, and so again, it's not necessarily, you know, look, going back to the point, is it the coach or is it the program? I think what Bob Stoops was saying is it's about the guys in the locker room. It's never about one person, and we heard him say that, which I thought was a really, you know, it was a great thing to say because that's so true. There's not one person that makes anything successful. I think we've seen that with, you know, maybe outside of Nick Saban. Every other program has proven that it is, you know, to what we just talked about with the Baylor game, it's next man up, right? This is a situation for OU that it is next man up. It's just that in this particular situation, Lincoln Riley being OC for 2 years and then coming up and winning like he has, recruiting like he has, guys away from the Floridas and the LSUs and Ohio States and the Alabamas and SCs to Norman, I think that there's a bigger play for a kid to want to be around Lincoln than it is around Norman.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, it's again, if you talk about NIL, if you talk about everything else, especially in this day and age where you do have a transfer portal where you can just look, if I'm a senior right now, let me go find something else. Let me go see if I can't be, a guy, again, Trey Sermon going into Ohio State. Why? It's just a cool, it's a cool opportunity, right?
Yep.
But I think as a young quarterback, again, in particular, a Caleb Williams guy, and we just saw that Spencer Rattler into the transfer portal, which I think we all knew was going to happen. Yeah. I love that he stayed the whole year. But, for Caleb Williams, what have you invested into Norman or the Switzer Halls that you were talking about that, outweighs following, and that one might be harder because he's the East Coast guy, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think that when you weigh those out, I think that as a freshman in Caleb Williams' shoes, if it's me, I'm following my guy. But we've also seen it too, and we've talked about it really all show, for these last couple of weeks, is just pick a quarterback. So there might be some kind of, disarray in that relationship.
Hey, does this guy really
me?
Okay, so that's from a player standpoint, and I think you've got great points there. I mean, you could go either way. If you're on the coaching staff and if Lincoln comes in and says this, I'll ask you kind of both sides. If you're on that plane, if he's like, hey, I want you to come to USC, are you packing up your stuff happy? And you've got a family and all that stuff, life in Norman. You've been there the last 7 years with this guy.
Yeah.
Are you happy? That's my first question. And then on the flip side, you're a coach on the staff. You're not on the plane. What's going through your mind knowing I've got to look for another job, or maybe, just maybe, depending on who you are, like a Cale Gundy, you get kept with the new staff coming in, whoever that might be.
Yeah. I'm trying not to get political here. I wouldn't be happy going to California. That's just me. Sorry. But, look, at the end of the day, I don't know how you can it's what I said before. I don't know how you can make a decision that fast. Like that big of a life decision that fast. I mean, to your point, it's not just about you, your kids. I've got a 17-month-old. You have a little one on the way. I don't know yet what that's like to have them injected into community and friends and sports and activities, and then just say, hey, uproot, we got to roll, without having any type of time to talk, and again, it's not that.
And if you're one of those, if you're a Dennis Simmons or you're an Alex Grinch or you're a Bill Bedenbaugh or you're a Benny Wiley, like, you're kind of tied to Lincoln, right? Like, he's giving you an opportunity and a job. It's tough to turn that away unless you've already had conversations with other people. So, like, the fact that it's not a group approach, it's not a group conversation, it's Lincoln's decision to make, and you just kind of got to pack up and roll with him. So
yeah, and again, I think that everybody has the guy that's been their ride or die for a long time. I think that it would cause it would definitely be tension. Like even between me and you, hey, I'm running to this show. Sorry, you can come with me or not, and be like, dude, what? And that's like on like the very, very, very minimal level of what we're talking about. So if you're telling me that I got to go sit here and tell my kids when I just found out at 9:30 this morning, when I have my notebook out and pen and paper, and be like, man, thanks for I haven't even had a chance to talk to my wife and kids yet about this. Like what? That's just a hard ultimatum.
Hey,
and it's not even an ultimatum. It's just that,
son, I know you're really enjoying your class this year. You've made a lot of great friends. I know you had a tough year last year.
Yeah.
And you have some of the best friends of your life.
We're going to California.
You just got off a Thanksgiving break. You've got 3 weeks until Christmas break. And buddy, you're gonna have to start saying your goodbyes because we're moving to California. I mean that's real life, right? Let me tell you this, but it is the vocation that they picked.
The vocation. I get it,
and that is the vocation, and that is the
way
it works.
With it. It's fine. Of those guys that you mentioned outside of Lincoln, they ain't getting $110 million. They ain't getting private access to a jet.
And guess what?
They're not buying their house, and they're not buying them a house.
Correct. and you're paying the California state taxes, right? So that was and we don't need to get all financial about it, but I know for a fact there is somebody on the staff, and I heard this from a primary source, who is not a position coach, but he's in recruiting. And news came out, and whether he gets eventually put on the plane or not, he basically said, I can't afford that.
Yep.
Like, I do this, and I probably make good money in Norman.
Yeah.
I probably make $100,000, maybe less, maybe a little more. I can't go, give my family the things that we have in Norman, Oklahoma on the same salary in California. And who knows? Maybe we're going to see ridiculous numbers for support staff and assistant coaches like we've never seen before. Maybe that's part of the deal. But you think all this was talked about in 12 hours?
No, that's the thing. I mean, again, how do you do that? How do you
Link's going to be living in a $6 million, $10 million cliff, big old house, can have all the recruits over, and the rest of his staff is going to be in a non-air conditioned little condo. Don't get me wrong; it'll be on the beach,
looking at the ocean. Yeah, that's right. So it's a strange thing. Okay, so biggest question to me though, with all this going on, we talked about player recruits team. What does this do, Trevor, in your mind, to Oklahoma moving forward on the brink of what is going to be the SEC West? Hell of a schedule. Going with little brother, big brother, whatever you want to call it, Texas. What does this do moving forward, for Sooner football?
In my lifetime, this has never happened at Oklahoma. I think the last time was in the 70s when a coach left for another job. Wasn't fired or didn't, retire, and they already had kind of the plan, like with Bob, right? So it's uncharted waters in Oklahoma. But back to my just history of the program in recent history, right? Depending on who they hire, which I think that's obviously a huge piece, who they can keep on the current roster from a leadership standpoint, and then what recruits they can continue to bring in or maintain or retain. That's going to paint the picture for the foundation. I think Oklahoma's going to be successful here in the short term. Moving into the SEC, this could not be worse timing. You had somewhat of a well-oiled machine. Now, I still think they had pieces that they had to put in place. Obviously, they didn't win the conference this year to go and be successful in the SEC. But now you're bringing in a new coach, big transition, now moving to the SEC. I think they may take their lumps for a couple years, but I don't worry about them in the long term. I think they're going to go out and get a really good hire. Some people may speculate that it's not a home run hire. I believe in Joe C. as an AD, and I believe they're going to hire somebody to keep the tradition going there to where they're successful. It's a two-sided conversation. I think I would have been speculative, even with Lincoln at the helm, moving into the SEC of being successful right away. But now you throw in these other variables. I think they'll take their lumps for a couple of years, but level out, be Oklahoma football.
Yep.
What about you?
No, I agree. I think this will be interesting because I think, again, on the history of what OU football is, even the fact that you said this is the first time that a coach has ever left OU, does that mean that this will be another 10-year guy? Is that what? And we've seen, big programs. I don't know why. I kind of go to the Big Ten a little bit when Michigan let go of Lloyd Carr, and Rich Rod came in. When Ohio State let go of Jim Tressel.
When USC let go of Pete Carroll.
USC, well, he jumped up. He jumped up to the Seattle.
When he left. I guess
right. No,
yeah.
it's a good point.
So you have Nebraska.
Yeah. So you have storied coaches, that have built up this again, just like what we talk about with players, this expectation that they will always be there. So now what happens, and this is, I think, for OU, if it was ever going to happen, which I think we both said, man, we never thought it would, but if it was to happen, this might be the best time for it to happen. 2 years to kind of set your foothold and your foundation going into the SEC with a storied coach, whether it's a home run guy or not, big culture guy, who knows? Hopefully someone that knows SEC. I think that'd be a really smart move. But this is the best kind of time for them to do that. So I think that, to your point, look, that OU has a national recruiting picture. They can do that. They can win. They've shown that. They can go to the playoffs. They've shown that. So I think they will be fine. I do think that there's going to be some turbulence in these next couple of years, and it's just in a crazy world that UT and Oklahoma are kind of in this same rebuilding phase. But